Okay, we are live with Catherine, and I'm going to share my screen with you. All right, can you see the chart?
I can see the chart.
Very good. So let's put yours in. When is your birthday?
May 21st, 1970,
What time
7:30 a.m.
and where?
Burnaby, British Columbia, Canada.
3 degrees Cancer rising?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Okay, Catherine. So, what is going on in your reality?
Oh, you know, I feel like there's big changes, transformations, evolutions, all happening against the backdrop of a world that's going through that. But a lot of it feels very personal.
Okay. So, what is one of these big changes?
It's not like external big change, like, job changes or relationship changes. It's more um, a sense that a felt sense that everything that I've been doing until this point is starting to converge and evolve in significant ways, um, in positive ways, I think mostly. Um, yeah, the kinds of good evolutions, though, or good transformations that can make you feel uncomfortable, um, maybe a bit hesitant, the kind of, the way that it feels if you're not jumping off a cliff in a hang glider that, maybe everybody is expecting you to, and you want to, and it's available to jump off the cliff in the hang glider, but it's jumping off a cliff in a hang glider. And again, there's nothing specifically tangible attached to it. The movements.
Well, as a person that doesn't know you, it's hard to imagine exactly what you're talking about. Um, is it related to your work? Is it related to your...
It is. No, it is. And I think it's, my work is not a super separate thing from me. I'm a storyteller, I'm a writer, I
Right.
have a company. Um, I I have had an amazing career, like, that has taken me all sorts of places and transformed my life in various ways, but I'm at a moment where it even feels like even that has been small, and
Hmm.
I have to consider the next phase of my life is coming for me, and I can choose how um how big it is.
Hmm.
So whereas for some folks, shifts in career might be just sort of, are you getting promoted? Are you, what's sort of happening in your financial spaces? But like for me, it's um, public, um, how I'm showing up in the world, um, and how I'm delivering on my own creative ambitions.
Hmm. Okay, I know which transit you're talking about, but it's kind of like I would still like to understand exactly what those transitions look like. Is there a reason you're kind of keeping it more vague? Do you just not
Oh,
want
no,
to disclose?
no, 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 no. I mean, how detailed do you want me to get?
Yeah, pretty. Actually, okay, maybe that's what's
Yeah.
missing. Yeah, as much detail as you can give, it's best.
Okay.
Like,
So, gosh, as a quick overview of the adult life story, I'm Canadian, but I've lived in the US for 15 years. Um, a sort of wild journey of career transitions took me there. I spent the first half of my adult life thinking I was going to be an academic, political philosophy, um, and
mhm.
2006, 2005, 2006, that began shifting. I became interested in the world outside of that, and that took me on a journey into digital media and into, I sometimes joke that it was accidental that I created my own company. But that led to actually a quite big career. I developed a public profile. I helped build a second company. The Walt Disney Company bought us. I ended up at the Walt Disney Company for a number of years doing, pretty important work. Have left and continued to be in the space of how stories change the world,
Mm-hmm.
how they change the world for good. It's involved me being on stages and having a public profile that has been, I think, many people would consider it very exciting. But there have been two things about it. One has been that it has, how to put this, it's incorporated a lot of my creative drive and ambition, but has not fully allowed it to take form. It
Mm-hmm.
has involved me to show up publicly in exciting ways, but in ways that I think haven't fully met their potential. A lot of my orientation, in this, really fun, exciting career that's had a very public me out in the world, and a public me that's not just a superficial identity, but deeper than that. It's still, I'm at this moment where it really feels like there is more. And this moment has been unfolding for a couple of years now. My mom died 2 years ago. That was a sort of, what are you doing with your life kind of moment. Things shifted dramatically in various ways. We went through the LA fires and had to be evacuated. We didn't lose our home, but it was another life upheaval that felt very dramatic. And things now feel to be sort of energetically converging in interesting ways. I spent the last week at the TED conference in Vancouver, and it was like exciting. I ended up on the stage for a minute. And it was also challenging because it felt like life was asking me, how much more do you want? Right? No, you
Mm-hmm.
want more, and that there are still parts of myself that have not fully surfaced and fully stepped onto the stage where I love to be. And
Mm-hmm.
although the superficial story of it would be like, of course, people want exciting things and want to be seen and want to be witnessed and want to step onto stages. But it feels like it runs a bit deeper, more complicated than that, that probably my deepest longings are around really pulling that even more creative side of myself out. Potential that I haven't yet fully tapped, that I've maybe been playing small on, even though to many people it might feel like doesn't look at all like I've been playing small, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, it feels like I've been playing small, and I feel like I'm in a moment now when the path opening up is like, are you really going to play bigger, whatever that means?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me understand. I just want to understand this better.
Mhm,
So you had a successful career. You started a
mhm,
business. You sold
mhm,
that business to Disney. Then you worked
mhm,
at Disney for a while, I guess.
mhm.
And I would like to understand what exactly. We'll get there in just a moment.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is you didn't really reach your full potential because you were kind of hiding behind the organization, for example. Do I understand correctly?
Yeah, I think that would be a fair frame.
Okay.
That perhaps I was hiding behind um and I would never say it was fully hiding, but that I got very comfortable being given, a very interesting and what some people consider sort of exciting identity and work to do
Mm-hmm.
in service of something else. And again,
Mm-hmm.
that something else is not alien from where all my passions and desires and interests and talents lie, but it was, um, yeah, directed away from myself.
And are you a storyteller? You're a
Yeah,
writer.
yeah. And a
Okay.
speaker.
and speaker. And what kinds of stories do you tell?
I talk about how stories change the world and how deep stories, mythology, stories that tap our imagination and our curiosity, and tap into our longing for myth, change us and
Mm-hmm.
change the world.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's interesting. Okay. Um, there's a few things coming up now, so we can start
Mhm,
including the astrology at last.
mhm,
Um, I'm just thinking about how I'd like to start. Okay,
mhm,
let's do it like this. Yeah. Okay. The first thing I want to point out is the full moon that you were born on.
mhm,
And in your case, the full moon is conjunct Neptune.
mhm,
And Neptune is the planet of mythology
mm,
and imagination. So it's where the collective gets all of their ideas and visions from, right? It's that kind of like ultimate inspiration,
mhm,
Neptune. So being prolific with various fantasies and books and stories, yeah.
mhm. Yeah.
And yeah, shining a light on mythos because you can see that the sun, in your case, is exactly opposite Neptune, right? They're about 36 minutes apart only.
Mhm,
So there I see how important role Neptune plays. And if you think about working for Disney as well, right? Disney is very Neptunian because
mhm,
they create the Disney World and the Disneyland.
mhm,
Right? So everyone knows that that's part of the collective kind of. So there I feel how both of your luminaries are in contact with Neptune.
mhm.
Okay, does that part make sense so far?
Completely.
Okay. The Gemini is also the writer
Mhm,
and the communicator and the speaker. And so there I feel your Gemini stellium pretty much, especially that you have Venus and Mars pretty close to the ascendant. I
mhm,
find it interesting the ascendant is in Cancer, right? That's another piece of the story we'll get to as we keep
mhm,
talking. Okay. The other thing that I feel, of course, is your Mercury Saturn conjunction. Because again, it's almost exact. You see how close they are.
yeah, yeah,
And so if you think about a person who's like, let's say, sitting down and writing a book, obviously it takes a lot of time to structure information, to collect information, to make sure it makes sense, to edit and revise it multiple times,
mhm.
right? That's all the Mercury Saturn kind of. And you also said that I didn't understand if you had a master's or, but it was about political science.
Political philosophy.
Political.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I have a couple of degrees.
Okay. And, but so that's something separate from the writing? Or-
No, it's not actually because it was, you know, it was part of that path when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, when I was younger, even into my early 20s. All I wanted to be was a writer. I
Mhm.
fell in love with political philosophy in college and was very, very, very good at it and got all the head pats and accolades, and so continued to pursue graduate work. And in my graduate work, the things started to converge because I've spent a lot of time looking at and thinking about sort of what I would call philosophy of storytelling. I was using political philosophy of way of getting into my passion for folklore and fairy tale and myth and stories that shape the world. So it was it very much fed the evolution of what came later because I became interested in digital stories. I became interested in how people, especially women, were telling stories in a very new public sphere, kind of creating a new mythos and a new folklore. And that was pulled me out. That was what pulled me out of academia, was to chase that fascination.
Mm. The fascination of
A new form of
digital
storytelling.
stories and how women were creating them
Yes.
online
Yeah, in a public forum.
in a public, like where?
Well, online, on the internet. So historically, when women have told stories about private lives, about family, the domestic sphere, it you know they've always been more or less private stories. That's why we think about fairy tales, the stories from the hearth, right? Bedtime stories, stories that are not in the big public square. Most of the big mythologies we associate with men.
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay, and so these stories that are from women, they're not stories from home. They're like epic stories. Is that what, am I understanding correctly?
I think that they are. I think that they are. I mean, my academic thesis, the way that I was thinking about it when I first, became interested in it, and this is like 20 years ago now, was the sort of early movement of women going online, going on the internet, starting blogs, starting webcasts, telling stories about what it's like to be a mother, what it's like to be a wife, what it's like to be a lover, what it's like to be female.
Uh-huh.
All of a sudden was in the public sphere on the internet where anybody could hear
Ah.
in a way that had never happened before.
Okay, so that is what intrigues you is the women telling the stories of being a mother, being a wife, what's happening at home.
That was the initial lure.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah,
now I get it.
yeah.
Um, all right, so there, now I start to feel very much your Venus in Gemini
Mm,
that is conjunct your ascendant in Cancer,
mm,
right? Because Cancer is the housewife or the
mm,
woman, the mother,
mm,
right? The person who takes care, who raises her husband, who raises her
mm,
children,
mhm,
right? Who helps her
mhm,
family, the support role
mhm,
kind of. And there's Venus and Gemini, right? Because Gemini is the one that's writing online and is like
mhm,
telling the story, right? It's about
mhm,
women. So here,
mhm.
does this make sense to you?
Completely.
Okay. And you know, I would be remiss not to mention that your Venus makes a very close trine with Jupiter. So I'm not feeling the Jupiter totally just now, just in the fact, for example, that you're interested in reading these women's works, right? Because that's the element of Jupiter. It's like something that's expanding you.
Mhm,
So, for example, taking interest in what they're doing is very expansive.
mhm.
Okay. How did you work with those women, by the way? Or did you, or were you just reading
Oh,
their works?
no, I mean, I became interested in this, what at the time was a fairly new phenomenon of women writing about their private lives online. I was finishing my PhD. I just had a baby. It was a transitional point in my life, and I became interested as a scholar. It's like, oh, how is this going to change how we think about storytelling if, any woman can just go online and like tell very public stories about what it's like to be a mother, a woman, a lover, however she identifies in the world. And so I was curious as a scholar. I ended up starting my own blog. That blog became very well known, and became the sort of pathway into something bigger because it became well known. I started getting attention. It sort of spiraled into its own business. And it was that took me on the path to Disney.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the former writer in me had the, wild transformative experience of becoming a fairly within that sphere well-known public writer.
Mm-hmm. Um, mm-hmm. And so when you had your own blog,
Mhm.
what was the blog about?
Mostly motherhood, but it was mostly motherhood. It was definitely you know,
Uh-huh.
but it was, there was a lot of scholarly stuff, a lot of philosophy. It was called, it still exists. It's called Her Bad Mother, and it was looking at sort of
Her
the
bad
tropes.
mother?
Bad, yeah, yeah, Her Bad
Okay.
Mother. um, and tackling tropes about good mothers versus bad mothers, and what does it mean to be a mother in a patriarchal world, and how does one retain
Wow.
one's sort of independence as a full-bodied, full-souled, full-spirited human being under these identities.
Wow. Okay. Do you start to see Jupiter in your fifth house?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's the philosophy of motherhood.
Mhm. Mm, mm, mm. Yeah.
And that you're writing these kind of like high level think pieces, right? And I guess you love writing, and you make the information so, like, you relate all the things so well that people just love it, right? And again, it's about motherhood. So there's the Cancer rising that is in the backdrop of this trine, right? The air trine being all the writing, and also, of course, getting famous for your writing. Also, because in your case, Jupiter is conjunct Spica, by the way. Do you know about fixed star Spica?
I don't actually.
Okay. Yeah, it just comes up again for me today. Because yesterday was the same situation. Just trying to find Spica. Okay. So you can see Spica's just at 23, but not too far from your Jupiter. And Spica's like the luckiest star in the heavens. Actually, the Vedic system organizes their entire zodiac around Spica. That's
Wow.
yeah. And that represents kind of like wealth and attainment and success. So that you reach kind of the highest accolades possible, let's say in Disney, which many people obviously don't. For me, makes me think about Spica being there as well. I just felt like I should mention it.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. I wasn't familiar with it.
The other part, of course, your Mercury Saturn conjunction, I feel, in the 11th house, because you have a blog that's like a mainstay online. And
Yeah, I haven't,
obviously,
to be clear, I haven't published on it frequently for years, but it's still, my social handles are still associated with it. And there's still a lot of people that associate it with me. And it's something that I've hung on to even as I've sort of progressed beyond writing about motherhood.
you know what? Totally. Now I feel how this is something you're kind of evolving beyond. Like you're ready to choose a new identity. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Because, all right, so here's what's happening now. All right, you can see Uranus. So the outside wheel is the transiting chart. And you can see if I just go forward a couple days, 1, 2, 3, Uranus is going to be at 0 Gemini, exactly conjunct your sun. So that's happening in 3 days, right?
Okay.
So this transit is something you've been experiencing for the past year already. But now you're kind of at the maximum. You're at the peak in April, like here at the last bit of April. Okay. So this for me, right? Because the sun has everything to do with identity and what you create into the world and what you're known for, how people see you, how people talk about you, right? Because the sun is all about visibility. Okay. And there's Uranus passing right over. Right. And Uranus is this force of like totally like awakening you to something completely different. And it's like this power surge of energy, and you're like, whoa, you're like in a vacuum, you know? Just okay.
Exactly. That's how it feels.
You can feel very electric. You can feel very strong in yourself, very intense. Yeah. Very ascended, kind of. And excited. Okay. What would be the new direction that you go into?
I mean, it's a direction that's been evolving in a while, which is a couple of things. One is sort of widening the aperture on the things that I talk about and known for, which have been shifting for a few years more broadly into storytelling and how storytelling changes the world, and broadly into a bigger mythos, and broadly connected to a sort of larger lens on women's experience, but also in connection to the human experience. So beyond being the mother, beyond being all the tropes, maiden, mother, crone, you know, that are associated with women, and into a fully human. It involves exploring a fiction project that's connected to those themes. It involves translating those themes into sort of contemporary elements of, you know, cultural dialogue, like AI and consciousness, and, you know, how are we going to human into the future? How, like, what is it going to mean to be human as everything changes around us? So it's maybe in some respects taking the question that I began moving into 20 years ago around, what does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to be a mother? What does it mean to evolve and transform in a patriarchal world that, you know, has historically kept us down, and evolve that into something bigger? And now the bigger question is like, well, what does it mean beyond that?
Hmm.
So it might be a way of characterizing it, to use the term used before, like shifting from philosophy of motherhood through sort of philosophy of womanhood to like philosophy of humanhood.
Uh-huh. Okay. That's a big leap.
It is a big leap. It is a big leap.
You know, that tells me how much has happened for you in the past years. Because it's like I don't know how to explain. It's just the sense. Okay.
It's um expanding. And it's an expanding for me, but it's also an expanding in the sense of like the frame that I'm trying to widen has bigger implications.
Like what?
Well, I get these are conversations I was having last week, for example, were about um, how if we're going to like radically change the world, there needs to be a matriarchal frame, right? Not just in the sense of
Ah,
mothers, but in the sense of like when we think about what does power or leadership look like, that the broader human lens, we've spent millennia associating the human with man, right? We talk about mankind and all of those things, and this larger shift needs to require um, not just the inclusion of the female slash feminine perspective, but like sort of needs to deeply integrate it and perhaps give something over to it.
hmm. Okay, interesting. That makes me think about okay. Um, so I have gone back to February 20th of this year. That date's not
Okay.
too important by itself, but
Okay.
you'll see why I'm making this point. It's about the Saturn Neptune conjunction in your 10th house
Uh-huh.
that is making an exact sextile to your sun, right? 0 degrees, you can see 0 degrees is your sun. Okay.
Yeah.
Saturn Neptune conjunction at 0 Aries is like the dawn of a new era for
Mm-hmm.
humanity, right? And you can
Mm-hmm.
see that because things are kind of falling apart. There's so many changes happening rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we're living under, well, delusional governments.
Yeah.
And so this makes me think about the connection with your son, that you're a person who's going to model what a new world leadership and authority could look like. That's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
understanding. You're providing new frames, new ways of
Mm-hmm.
thinking about power and also
Mm-hmm.
organizing society. Did I understand correctly?
No, you're right. You're spot on.
Okay. Yeah, so here I feel how you're and it's interesting that you went the Disney route, right? Because they're the ones that produce stories that change the world,
Yeah.
because they're
Yep.
inside of everyone's minds. And so I see how you kind of, having gone through that process, you understand the power of stories and how
Mm-hmm.
maybe you want to create this very new kind of story that can really help shape people's minds outside of the patriot. Did I understand correctly?
Yes. Yeah, completely.
Very good. Interesting. Yes, that is a big calling. So what does the fictional project look like? Is it a book or movies or
No, I mean, for the moment, it's a book. I mean, who knows what it'll become? For the moment, it's a book, and it's sort of at the core of it is sort of a retelling of the story of the Garden of Eden and Eve.
hmm, interesting. Okay, and I guess you retell that story
Yes.
without Eve being the sinner or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Okay, and you're in the middle of writing that now?
I am, yeah.
Huh. Okay, and how long is that book going to be?
Like how long, like how big of a book is it going to be? How long is it going to be?
Right. I don't know much about publishing or books. Maybe some of my questions are kind of silly, but
Oh, no, 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 not at all, not at all. I'm not sure what the timeline is going to be. With fiction books, you have to get the whole thing written before you can sort of get into the process of figuring out how it's going to be published. It feels like it's going to go fast, though.
okay. Mm-hmm. And
And
how
to be
long have
clear, sorry,
go ahead, go ahead.
I was just going to be clear. It's not something that I've talked about publicly. There are very, very few people who know that I'm working on it.
Oh, okay. Well, this is gonna be published publicly. Is that okay?
Oh, yes, yeah, completely, completely,
Okay.
completely. Yeah.
Okay. How far along are you?
That's a really, really, really good question. If I were comparing it to a birthing process, I would say that I am in the middle stages of labor. It
Does
was
that mean
gestating for a long time.
so is the middle stages like 4 or 5 months?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Okay. Um, yeah, there's something else that comes up. I'm again thinking about your full moon conjunct Neptune.
Hmm.
And in this case, I'm thinking about the Bible.
Mm.
The Bible is as old a mythos as any of us have.
Hmm.
And it just makes me think about this full moon conjunct Neptune that you have, and you're rewriting like the oldest story
Hmm.
in the world.
Mm.
Does that
Hmm.
make sense?
Completely, yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Okay. What does it look like to write? To actually write such a, what do you have to do? Do you research? How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of research and um, there's a lot of drawing upon, my former academic work, but it's also requiring me to sort of go back to texts and ideas and interpret them through a different lens. So there's a lot of research that looks at, the Bible and the various iterations of the Bible, and then also to other traditions, that I think have relationship to the story of Eve, the story of Demeter for the ancient Greeks, the story of Inanna for the Sumerians. So there's a lot of research into theology and mythology, and then there is just the sitting down and letting the different parts of the story kind of pour forth.
Hmm. But it's a lot of like focused work, I guess.
Yes, yeah,
And researching a lot.
yeah.
Okay. I'm again thinking about your Mercury Saturn conjunction. That's why I'm asking about the writing process. It's actually
Mhm.
just to get more into the Saturn because I'm very
Yeah,
sure that in writing a book, obviously that's not an easy or quick thing at all.
no,
Okay. Hmm.
no, it's hard.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Hmm. What's happening in the backdrop of this? Like, so this is kind of your professional life. How does your personal life shift in tandem?
Gosh, I mean, they're so entwined in so many respects, right? In, the book, as I mentioned, that creative project is, something that I've been holding close to my chest while continuing to lead the broader public life, which is a lot of public speaking and advising and, helping others with their storytelling and story making processes, and it's against the backdrop of a life where, my daughter went to college 2 years ago. My son's graduating high school in a month, 2 months. So there's
Hmm.
also that, there are life stage transitions.
So your son is probably going to go to school or
He's going to go to college, yeah.
okay. So that
Although I
means you're
think
kind
it's,
of also hmm?
oh, I think he's gonna stay living at home though for a while.
Okay. Hmm. Interesting. What does it mean for you to like public speaking, for example? Where do you speak, or what do you speak on?
I speak on storytelling and the imagination and reclaiming mythology, all themes, that have already surfaced. Um, I get invited to speak at conferences and summits for, innovators and people in the world of ideas. I get invited to speak at companies. Um, yeah, anyone who is interested in the future of storytelling, myth building, the power of the imagination.
Hmm. And you explain to them how to tell good stories. Like
Yeah.
you give them a structure or frames, or
No, this is interesting. There's an element of the how to tell good stories through the lens of like what's the structure of good stories, but what I do differently is kind of focus on um, this idea that everybody is a storyteller. We all have like it's our most human capacity. And
mhm,
for many people, it's untapped. And even like in communities and movements and organizations, it's untapped. And that the best storytelling is mythic storytelling, is storytelling that goes for something deep that doesn't sit on the surface.
mhm,
So it's in many respects, it's like it's the opposite of saying, here's the template for how to do it well. It's like you have to like do some hard work to figure out what that's going to look like for you, whether you're an individual or a Disney.
mhm. Okay, so now I'm looking at the Moon Neptune conjunction. I'm having this impression like you are brimming with imagination.
Hmm.
Okay. Do you have stories come to you like in dreams, or you just see them and feel them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. Were you into like Disney a lot when you were little?
Yeah, when I was little, I was for sure. And I mean, beyond Disney, I was broadly into like fairy tale and
Mm.
myth. And my parents, especially my mom, were big storytellers. And my mom used to weave all like make up her own fairy tales about the world around us. So it was very, as a kid, that world of the
Mm.
imagination was sort of core to my existence and experience.
Oh, interesting. So she was mythologizing like your everyday life, what was
Yes.
happening around
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now I'm getting the Moon Neptune in the sixth house.
Hmm.
Yeah, that your mom is an excellent storyteller. And can you give an example of that?
Gosh, we would go for walks or hikes, in the Pacific Northwest, the west coast of Canada, um, and which is rainforest, lots of ferns, giant, giant, giant trees, very ambient. And we would go for walks, and she would tell me stories about, the sort of the epic lives of all the animals in the forest and all of their politics and how the fairies tied into everything, and would just sort of weave a whole you know vibrant folkloric mythic world, about the environment we were walking through.
Wow. Isn't that special?
It was really special. Yeah, really, really special.
I guess not many people get that experience. I certainly didn't.
No.
Interesting. Okay, so do you see that now in your Moon Neptune conjunction?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's another part of it. It's your Mercury Saturn in Taurus,
Mm-hmm.
because the forest, the
Ah.
ancient forest,
Mm-hmm.
and all of the animals, right? So she's teaching about all the animals and what they do and all of their politics and how do they, right? She's kind of humanizing them even. There's an
Yeah.
animal and forest community,
Yeah.
right? So
Yep.
that makes me think about the 11th house.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, the world that's in the forest that we don't pay
Mm-hmm.
much attention to. Okay, that's
Mm-hmm.
so nice. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it was on the Pacific coast. So I guess that's on the backdrop of the ocean, or what?
Yeah. Yeah. I was, spent most of my childhood in Vancouver, Canada. So mountains, rainforests, the ocean.
Mm-hmm. My sister lives in Vancouver.
It's a beautiful city.
It is. It's nice. The island. Yeah, it's surrounded by water, in fact.
Yeah.
Okay. That also makes me think about the moon Neptune,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you live near the ocean.
Mhm.
And part of your experience is like being around the ocean.
Mhm.
Yeah, going on walks with your mom on the coast.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, uh-huh.
Mhm.
Would you also drive to different places, like go visit kind of fun, mysterious, interesting places?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Both my parents loved camping and exploring, so I spent my childhood, in national parks.
Ah, hmm. So I guess you also know a lot about nature.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Like, would you deem yourself a biologist nearly?
Oh gosh. I don't know that I would go that far. I have into the sciencey um, element, but I've always felt very close to it and connected to it, and in love with it. And it's been an interesting curl in the evolution of my work because I do. Um, I teach in a couple of programs, like teaching biologists and climate scientists how to tell better stories about nature.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, I did a talk last year on rewilding story, about getting story back to its natural form.
So nice. Okay. Okay, so do you get that part, right? The Mercury, Saturn, Taurus in the 11th, teaching biologists and climate scientists
Mhm.
how to tell better stories about nature.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I guess when you were going to the national parks, your parents were also telling you, like, this is this tree and it grows that tall, and this is this kind of grass, and here we have this kind
Yeah.
of shrubbery.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Lots of stuff about moss and fungi, but it was like this is I can identify literally every kind of fungi in the Pacific Northwest, but it was also with that layer of story of like, of course, there are fairies living underneath it.
Ah, so fun. Okay. Okay, so then again, Mercury, Saturn, Taurus, being able
Mhm.
to identify every variety of fungus in
Mhm.
the Pacific Northwest.
Mhm.
And also being so knowledgeable about nature
Mhm.
and what's happening, like all the different stuff that's around. And then the moon Neptune. Well, there's the fairies living there.
Yeah.
So that also makes me think about your sixth house. You know, the sixth house is kind of your everyday life, which for most
Okay.
people is very mundane, right? You get up, you feed yourself, you go to work, you
Yeah.
exercise maybe. It's like the kind of the very practical realities.
Mhm.
And for you, I see there was a very different experience of everyday life,
Mhm.
right? There was the fairies, there was the imagination, there were the stories that were just brimming everywhere around you. It was full of
Mhm.
mythos.
Mhm. Mhm.
Does that all make sense?
Completely.
Okay, very good. Mhm. How about things like physics, like gravity, like Earth, hard science? Like,
Uh, it's that's really interesting. Again, I most of my life very much identified as, storytelling and philosophy and folklore, and harder science was something that was sort of something I didn't feel close to. But it's two things about it. One is that I was always very interested, especially in physics, especially in like physics of the universe, right? Like the way that physics informs the cosmos. But it's been another in the evolution of the story work. Um, I mentioned doing story work with climate scientists and biological scientists, environmental scientists, but I've also done it with some like deep tech companies working in one in particular, working in soil, right? Working in like, and the connection there has been I actually for this company like wrote a fairy tale of like how their technology transforms how we understand the earth as a living being.
wow. Hmm.
So I have no idea how their science works, but I found the story in it.
Is it? Hmm. Okay, I love that. Again, Mercury, Saturn, Taurus,
Hmm.
right? Helping a soil company tell a better story about their
Hmm.
business to the world.
Hmm.
And again, the 11th house, by the way, is when you communicate with the world. It's when you publish something that's going to be consumed by many people.
Hmm.
Right, so the 11th has to do with much more like broad appeal, much more
Mhm,
social kind of work, okay?
mhm,
And the other part again, like I'm really now I'm really understanding your moon Neptune, that you live kind of in that folklore mythos.
mhm,
Yeah, that's always like the background for you, or what you're
mhm.
most comfortable, most aware of. Yeah,
Yeah,
most
yeah.
familiar with. Okay. Yeah, that makes me think also about you traveling a lot, like being in different countries around different cultures, different
Mhm,
languages, meeting with different people.
mhm.
hmm hmm Are you married or are you single?
I'm married. Yeah, been
You're
married for a long
married.
time. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then you guys are you live in Canada now or you live in the US?
No, we live in Los Angeles.
You live in Los Angeles. Okay, and there's no plans on changing that. That's kind of your base where you want to do the work.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Mhm. Hmm.
I mean, who knows?
What do you think about this so far?
It's super interesting what you're reflecting back, and seeing in the chart. And yeah, it's sort of pulling insights from me
hmm And it's all making sense too, right? How it's organized, how it
completely.
works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there another part of your chart that you've been wondering? Do you ever spend time with it? Did you ever ask yourself, so what does this aspect mean?
Um, I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with the details of it. But yeah, I've been curious about all parts. Yeah, and there's um Chiron. Um, I recently learned about Black Lilith. Um, but these are all, it's all a bit of an abstraction. It's sort of limited to, what I know from Channy Nicholas's app.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah.
hmm Okay. I'm looking again at your Mercury Saturn. I'm thinking about okay, it's something about how people get food on the planet.
Oh,
And
that's
it's about like
interesting.
farming practices.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and yeah, that's coming up just suddenly.
I mean, it's connected to what I was just sharing with you about the company that I was doing story work with in the deep tech space. That a big application of their technology is exactly that: farming, agriculture, how to get farmers closer to the land, how to, and there's a lot of really sort of radical potential in the stories around that, because they can potentially change how people think about how people get food and what the connection from the soil to the soul is.
Yes. hmm And you're doing that just recently.
Yeah, the work started last summer, and it's just having more conversations with the founder, inventor of this technology about like helping expand the mythic story of this work that he's doing.
Uh-huh. hmm I'm just checking your progressions because I felt like there should be something aspecting your Mercury Saturn, but there isn't for now, so it's somewhere else, but that's okay. hmm
Mhm. What does that mean?
Well, if you think about it, if you're working on that project now, then we have
Mhm.
ascertained that, at least in part, that project is visible on the Mercury-Saturn conjunction.
Mhm.
And since that's like an active part of your life well, it always is, right? Because it's part of your
Yeah.
chart. Then I feel like it should be indicated by, for example, I was thinking the progressed sun would make a sextile to your Mercury Saturn, right? Because then every
Right.
day you're thinking about this, working on it, talking
Right.
to them, learning about them, helping them craft their stories, right?
Yeah.
That's not the case, but for example, and I always look for, Jupiter
Mhm.
for the past, I would say 6 months, maybe 8 months, has been making a sextile to your Mercury Saturn, right? And Jupiter is that sort of expansive energy. So there, I
Mhm,
find the answer to what's happening,
mhm,
why you're doing that project exactly at this time.
mhm.
Was that, by the way, kind of a new thing for you to get into?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the broadly the connection of storytelling to science and to climate and to building a better, healthier Earth, that's just been evolving more or less over the last year and a half. So it's relatively new, and it's not a huge piece of the work, but it's significant to me because it's been really interesting. It's been a new application of how I do story work, and it's been a new frame on mythos and folklore for me that obviously connects to my childhood, and
Mhm.
it's evolving.
Uh-huh. Yeah, this makes me think also about you having some interest in like legislation that protects national parks, not just in the US, by the way.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's a sort of interesting frame for me when I both in the context of my work and in the context of the work and the intersection with my personal passions that ties into my own creative explorations and philosophic explorations are the you know what really is the intersection of the human and the quote unquote natural world. Humans are, of course, deeply
Mm.
part of the natural world, but what's our relationship? What's our obligation? How do we separate ourselves from it? When we create new mythologies, how can we do that in a way that like deeply, deeply, deeply honors and integrates the non-human?
Mm-hmm. Okay, here I'm also seeing like building spaces for conversation where people can sit and relax and be together and exchange ideas. It feels kind of like a cafe or like a yeah, like a meeting place.
Yeah, I mean, if you put that into a virtual context,
Yes. Okay.
100%. Although there are elements of, of sort of taking that into the real world of sort of convening salons.
Yes. Exactly, salons.
Yeah.
I guess that is what you already do kind of with all the
Yeah, I'm getting closer to it. Like that's one of the things that is like that feels to be becoming more important and more part of my, how I'm showing up on the public stage is not just as a sage on the stage doing a keynote, but like
mhm,
convening other people and pulling people into dialogue and reshaping how we think about dialogue and conversation
mhm,
around ideas.
mhm. Yeah, and I was also seeing just in this conjunction like it came through as like hard math, like
Oh,
complicated
interesting.
math or algorithms, and also
That's
like building technology.
Yeah, there's absolutely the evolution of this work is really, 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 really tilting into technology. When I spoke briefly on the TED stage last week, it was AI and consciousness, and I was arguing
Mm,
that we need to consider the possibility of consciousness. Now, again, I don't have any of the hard science background, but there is a lot of math in all of that. There's a lot of math in the physics. There's a lot of math in the tech. Um, but this the question of where technology fits into our own mythos, our human mythos, is a core thing for me.
mhm, mm. And that's something that you're really blossoming into now lately, like in
Yeah,
the past year.
yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes me think about Pluto. Pluto's been in Aquarius for the past, let's say, 3 or 4 years, roughly.
Mm,
And the Pluto in Aquarius for me is one of those transits that reflects those massive technological changes that we're going through, where we're now moving towards like an AI foundational framework that everyone's going to use for everything. Right? People are getting agents left and right. I see it every day
yeah,
now.
Yeah.
And so that transformation of society that's increasingly moving to digital, and that's changing the way we interact as humanity, that's the Pluto
Yeah.
and Aquarius transit. Of course, it's many other things, but just to make it simple, right?
Yeah.
So at this time, he's making an exact sextile to your moon. And this is, for me, what's making you really think about, okay, now there's this huge change happening in humanity. I notice it. I'm a part of it. It's all around me. And I want to bring my point of view, which is the mythos. And how do we connect it to the human psyche, and how do we bring it closer to ourselves? How does it impact us, and what happens in our brain, right? Because the moon is very much about what's happening inside of you. So you might be very concerned about that too. How does that live in our brains and in our thoughts and make us different?
Yeah. Yep. That's a great.
Okay. Oh yeah, and that's making you expand also, like use more technology yourself, like actually see what it's about, explore the different kinds and what they're capable of.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, there's not too much fear for you. There's more exploration and curiosity.
Completely, yeah. Completely.
Okay, and it's like an everyday thing for you. Yeah. So okay. Yes, I totally get it. And I see you working on that with other people, like in group, like it's an organizational thing. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're talking a lot. I see you being the one to. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's pause there for today then. All right.
This is really great.
How so?
I mean, it was extremely useful in the context of the invitation to me to consider these things, and you were pulling out threads that were coming together in ways that I hadn't reflected on. So all of that chart grounded weaving was really, 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 really interesting.
Great. Okay. Good. I'm going to stop recording, and then you and I are just going to chat for a couple more minutes.
Yep.
Okay. So for those of you who watched this episode with Catherine, thanks for sticking through, and we'll see you on the next episode. So we are signing out.